To be gathering this morning as people come into our sanctuary space. My name is Linda Noonan. I'm the senior pastor. My pronouns are she and her, and we are so glad you've chosen to worship with us this morning. This morning, we gathered to call forth the holiness of the ancestors and all those who have gone before us, as we dare remember those whom we've loved and who have died. We call their names and we feel the divine connection surge through us. We gather where the sparks of God fly as we celebrate the connection that is still alive between us. May we feel God's grace and the bond that joins us to one another in this time of depth, longing, and mystery. May we be comforted and inspired and strengthened and invigorated by our connection to the greater whole. As we're gathering and centering, I invite you to notice the land beneath your feet at this moment. Be curious about who was here before you. We're all beneficiaries of stolen land and stolen labor. May our worship and our lives honor these sacred lands and our Indigenous siblings. I invite you also this morning to grab a piece of paper and something to write with. We'll have an opportunity during the sermon time to do a little reflection. Plus, doodling is a spiritual practice and is always encouraged in church. So grab some paper and something to write with if you are so inclined. So in non-pandemic times, on this morning, All Saints' Day, we would be in our sanctuary. Kyoko and Lynn Riley, an internationally known sax player and our church friend, would be huddled at the piano, and we would be breaking into several rounds of When the Saints Go Marching In. Our pandemic hack this morning is Kyoko having recorded a song late last night from Japan, and will share it with us for our prelude this morning, When the Saints Go Marching In. Deep breath as we begin. Amen. Amen. Thank you, Kyoko, for your music and all the ways that you help us still feel connected to one another and to spirit. Our opening song this morning is also one that we do each year on this special day, All Saints' Day. And it is the song, the hymn for all the saints. Kyoko has also recorded this for us. We won't be singing for you because we can't sing and have Kyoko's music at the same time, and her music is much more interesting. So she will be playing 3 verses of For All the Saints. There's a little intro that comes in first. We will share the words to this hymn, which I've adapted for this morning in the slides, and again play a song that Kyoko recorded for us from Japan last night, and invite you, wherever you are, to sing, to stand, to move, to begin to call in all the saints in your life and in our world. For all the saints. Amen. Amen. And amen. At this time, I invite Ovid, our coordinator for children and youth, and Priscilla, our associate pastor for Christian education, to lead us in our opening sentences, which were written by Deja Baptiste and are found in the Black Trans Prayer Book.
You are not alone.
We are not the first or the only.
It is your courage, your faith, your spirit that sets you apart.
We are not doomed. We are not cursed.
You are the blessed ones, the blessing.
We are blessed to know our spirits are not only bound in our skin and flesh, that bodies, like names, are expressions, manifesting the soul we bear outside of time and beyond infinity.
There is a lineage here.
We were never the first time our family, our hometown, our faith, our lovers loved and were loved by us.
The blessed ones.
We heard and nurtured our ancestors' dreams and came forward to create and dream, imagine and plant, live in the physical, what is celebrated and cherished and renewed in the spiritual.
Amen.
Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Ovid. Thank you, Priscilla. So I haven't had a chance to look around the room and see if we've got some kids here. And we probably do. So I'm going to just start talking to the kids. And if any of you are here and want to come off video and want to come off mute and say hi, that would be great. I see you, Warren. Good morning, Warren. I don't know who else is here, but I'm going to talk to you a little bit. And if I see you.
Hello.
Oh, hi, Warren. How are you?
Good.
Good. You look like a big rainbow. I love it.
Thanks.
Bright and colorful. It is really good to see you this morning. I know there's a picture coming up that might be special to you, and so I'm really happy that you're here this morning to share it with us. You'll see it in just a few minutes. So for any of the other kids who are here and maybe some of the big kids, this is a pretty hard time. And some of the kids, it's a hard time. Some of you are in school, actually going physically to school, and that probably feels really different from what it felt like before, because now you have to stay a certain distance away from your friends and you can't play the way you're used to, and you might not be going to school on the same days you're used to going. And some of you aren't physically going to school at all, and you're sitting at home all day with your computer, and they're calling that school. And there's a lot that's hard, and some of your parents and your families are a little bit stressed out these days, and you might be wondering why they're so nervous and jumpy and crabby. One of the things that can happen even when stuff is hard, and even in the middle of a pandemic, and even when the world is a little bit wacky, we can still keep learning new things. And somebody reminded me of that this week, and it's somebody that you may know from church if you've been hanging around church. Somebody that I know and you know, while all this pandemic nonsense is happening outside and all this other stuff is happening in the world with elections, somebody among us has been learning something new. So I wanted to ask you, whether you're a big kid or a little kid, what is something new that you have been learning, even if some of the things around you are kind of hard? So I invite you to think for just a second, and you can put it in the chat box if you want. If you're a big kid, if you're a little kid or a medium-sized kid, you can come off mute and tell me, is there something new that you've been learning during the pandemic? Warren, is there anything new you've been learning during the pandemic?
I learning new songs for guitar.
Oh,
You're learning the guitar.
Yeah.
you
Tell them
are
I'm
learning.
learning the guitar, and I actually, when I did it, I hurt my finger because my hands are not that strong yet.
Oh, oh. Are you getting that? You're hurting the hurt finger because of this pressing on the strings and it gets real sore?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that used to happen to me when I played guitar. That means you're I think that means you're practicing because if your finger is hurting, it means you've been practicing. That is so cool. Maybe someday for church you could play a song that you're learning on the guitar for us. Would you consider doing that maybe sometime?
Sure.
That'd be awesome. That'd be awesome. Hey, I see you, Juniper. I just saw somebody else too. Who else did I just see? Did I? Hi, Juniper. Is there anything that you have been learning lately? What have you been learning?
Tricks in gymnastics class.
Tricks and gymnastics class.
Can I show them?
Oh my,
Oh, you can show us.
gymnastics. Oh my gosh, that's so cool.
She show you a somersault.
Please show us a somersault. And for those of you at home, you might want to get on speaker view or I'm going to quickly pin. Okay, there we go. Show us. Yay! I don't know if you can see Juniper when people raise their hand. Do you see people raising their hands and shaking them like this? That means they're clapping for you. That's a way of clapping when people can't hear you clapping. Oh my gosh, that was so great. Thank you for showing us your somersault. I really love that. Very cool. Is there anybody else that's learning a new thing that you want to tell us about? Oh, I see you, Nevaeh. I see you, Elena. I see you, Josiah and Adrian. Can you all tell us anything you're learning? Thanks.
Today's the Day of the Dead.
It's the Day of the Dead. Elena, what do you think that means?
I think that means like we're celebrating like all the people that like died in our family.
Oh my gosh. You just totally gave the sermon for the morning. That was exactly right. That is exactly right. And we're going to see some of their pictures and we're going to hear some of their names and we're going to even draw a picture. And maybe you can do that too when the time comes. Thank you for telling us that. Nevaeh or Adrian, anything you all are learning? Yeah, Adrian.
Say it. What, you wanted to say something? Say it.
What are you learning?
I just wanted to say Happy Halloween.
Happy Halloween. Happy Halloween. Happy Halloween. I bet you're learning how to have Halloween during a pandemic. I'll bet that's a new thing you learned.
Kind of.
Oh my gosh, so many cool things. Guitar songs, learning about the Day of the Dead and All Saints Day and Happy Halloween and a somersault to boot. Anybody else have anything they want to tell us about? Okay, I'm going to share one thing because I just think this is really cool. So this is something that one of your pastors has been learning while you all have been going to Zoom school and whatever other kind of staying buried things you've been doing. Remember, Ovid told you to stay buried during this time so you can come back and bloom safely later. So I'm going to share something that someone at church has been learning during this time. And the song might sound familiar because it's about all the saints. Elena, it's about those people that have died. We call them saints, we call them ancestors. And this song might sound familiar. Kyoko just played it. It's called When the Saints Go Marching In. those hands, shake those hands, clap, give your Zoom clap, your best Zoom clap. So, Kip, who knew that while we were doing all this Zoom church business and Zoom school business and Zoom jobs business, Kip has been over there learning how to play the saxophone. So, Kip, thanks for sharing that with us. And we're so excited. Maybe you can come back and play another song for us sometime. It's really, 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 really cool. Well, thank you, everybody. I'm going to turn it over to our sax player this morning to give us some announcements. Thanks, everybody.
Good morning. I'm Kip, Associate Pastor, he, him, and these are our announcements. First, big thanks to Terry Roberts for running Tech Today. She's got a big job, and we are always grateful for the seamless support. There's a big election coming up. You may have heard something about that. And there are lots of folks anxious, and there are lots of folks preparing for whatever might come next. So if you would like to be part of what we're calling a democracy pod or an affinity group within our congregation to support the use of nonviolent direct action in the event of civil unrest or a power grab following the elections, if you're willing to be in the streets, or if you want to support people who are doing direct action, you can plan to attend this evening a Soul Force training from Power that will start at 6 o'clock. If you want to make this commitment but can't attend the training, you can be in touch with Linda. You can register for the training at Power Interfaith. We can maybe get this, someone can put this link in the chat if you want to follow that. Tomorrow evening, there is a multi-faith community gathering for solidarity and hope at 6 p.m. It'll be about 45 minutes long. It will be online. You can find that at the Northwest Philly Multi-Faith Leaders Facebook page, or you can show up in person with a mask, socially distanced, at Oxford Presbyterian Church, which is at 8501 Stenton Avenue. This is organized by the Northwest Multi-Faith Religious Leaders. Our pandemic parenting group meets on Mondays. That's every Monday at 8:15 in the evening. It's a small group for support, connection, and resourcing. The people with the elder parents support group, which would have been scheduled for this coming Wednesday, is postponed until next month, and it will resume on December 2nd. The Honoring Grief group will meet this Thursday evening at 7. It's a safe and gentle space to hold your losses through journaling and other writing exercises. We'll gather to write, explore heart space, and tell stories of grief through guided prompts and sharing. And that is always a good space to join together. Bible study is on. It will continue a series on Exodus called Freedom is a Constant Struggle. The next Bible study meeting is November 11th, so that's Wednesday of next week at 7:30. Bible study meets on the 2nd and 4th Wednesdays of each month. This Saturday, if you need to work out a little of your post-election anxiety, if we're not all out in the streets protecting democracy, if you just need to work some of it off, our trustees are hosting a work day from 9 to 1. And you can show up for all or part of that work. We are asking that folks bring their own tools as much as possible, bring masks, bring hand sanitizer. There will be sanitizer and masks available if you forget yours. Sci-Fi Book Club is meeting on Tuesday of next week. That's the 10th, from 6:30 to 8:30 to talk about the book, How to Live Safely in a Science Fictional Universe by Charles Yu. Our People of Color support group, Amen and Amen, has been moved to the middle of this month. So it will take place on Tuesday, the 17th at 7:30 p.m. That is a rescheduling from this coming Tuesday. We've just wrapped up our our outreach month of October. We heard a lot of messages about our various justice commitments. We have a goal of raising $5,000 to support those in various ways, and we are at roughly $3,000. There is still ample time. If you want to make gifts to outreach giving, you can do that through our online giving or your regular giving channels. Care Mesner is with us again this morning. We heard from Care last week, and Care is here again this morning. Care has some workshops coming up at the Naramata Center, all online and prepaid for. You can make use of a code that we've got for our congregation, Resilience 2020. If you use that when you register, the workshops won't cost you anything. We do have a prayer request email address. If you want to make sure that pastors get prayer requests, you can send them to prayers@chestnuthillunited.org. I think that our last announcement that is not here on the slides is it's the first Sunday of the month. We have a tradition of gathering and hanging out with each other. If you want to spend a little time connecting with folks at the end of the service, stay around and we'll hold this space open for folks to check in with each other.
Thanks, Kip. Thanks, Kip. As we move into the next part, again, I want to invite you, if you haven't already done so or came in after we mentioned this, to grab a piece of paper and something to write with. We're going to do, you'll have an opportunity to do a little doodling and writing, nothing very long during the sermon time. For now, we're going to move into our celebration of all the saints. And the way we're going to do this in this virtual space together, normally we come together in a circle and we light candles and we raise up names and we do a litany together. And this space is a little bit different. So I have extended an invitation over the past couple weeks for people to send me photographs and names of people who are connected to them in some way, who have died, that we want to remember and honor. So Terry is going to share a video just now, which will include those names. It will also include a medley that Kyoko has recorded for us, and the names of just some people in the world that are wise ones that have offered their gifts to the world or that have died by violence in the past year. There will also be a time during the sermon when you're invited to add the names of other people in your life or the world that are important to you that you would like us to raise up. So at this point, I invite us to remember some of those saints. Our text this morning from the Bible comes from the book of Hebrews, the 12th chapter and the first 3 verses. Therefore, since we are surrounded by such a great cloud of witnesses, let us throw off everything that hinders and the sin that so easily entangles. And let us run with perseverance the race marked out for us, fixing our eyes on Jesus, the pioneer and perfecter of faith. For the joy set before him, he endured the cross, scorning its shame, and sat down at the right hand of the throne of God. Consider Jesus, who endured such opposition from sinners, so that you will not grow weary and lose heart. 30 years ago, my friend Patrick invited me to his home. He was a student at the Black Ecumenical Seminary in South Africa, where I was living at the time. We drove, along with my partner in our small, beat-up, faded yellow Toyota, from the eastern central part of the country to the farthest corner of the northeast to a region called Gazankulu, which was right below the country of Mozambique. We drove for about 10 hours or so on interstates and main roads, turned onto smaller auxiliary roads, then onto dirt roads, and then the road appeared to just end. To our right and to our left was high, razor-sharp, dry grass. There was absolutely no road in front of us. But before us was a dried-up riverbed. It looks like we've taken a wrong turn, I said to Patrick. Oh no, this is right, he said. Just keep going. Keep going? I'm sorry, but there's no way we can make it across. This is the way, he said. It looks impossible, but just keep going. Everything inside me said this wouldn't work. We had an old car, we didn't have money for repairs, and there was no garage around us. But he was taking us to his home. This was his part of the country, and we were his guests. I prayed and put the car in first gear. Suffice it to say, it was not easy. The car kept bottoming out, scraping on the rocks. I was sure we would lose the whole transmission. At one point, he and my partner had to get out of the car to lighten the load, and we were able to make some progress. Eventually, we made it down the steep embankment, across the rocks, around the boulders, and then up the embankment on the other side. And then eventually we came to his home. Patrick's mother was one of 4 wives to his father. They all lived together in community. There were many children, Patrick being the eldest. The children ran to greet us. We were brought from mother to mother to mother to mother, and then to the father, and then to the grandmother. The structures there were all made of mud bricks with thatched grass roofs. Some of them were round, some were square, most were just one room. We were taken to a low structure with a small fire burning on the mud floor in the center. There was a hole in the thatched roof that allowed the smoke to escape. We had to crouch way down to enter, and we sat on the ground. The smoke and the darkness made it hard to see, but eventually we noticed a woman lying across the floor, wrapped in a blanket, and she looked ancient. She spoke to us, and her grandson translated. Among other things, she spoke of the ancestors. And when she was done, Patrick asked if we had any questions for her. We did. Where are the ancestors exactly? We asked. She took her arm from out beneath the blankets and she waved it above her head and then waved it in front of her. When I do this, she said, the ancestors are here. When I do this, they are here. Walter Wallace Jr., his family called him Little Walt. He was 27 years old. He was due to be married and had a baby on the way. And last week, like so many of us, or our children or our loved ones, he had an emotional crisis. Something was too much, too traumatic, or too scary, or too out of kilter. And instead of getting the help he needed, his mama stood next to him on the street on Locust between 61st and 62nd as the police approached, and she watched him die. I invite you to join me and with Patrick's grandmother, now an ancestor herself, and just do this. Remember Walter Wallace Jr., little Walt. I invite you to close your eyes and wave your hand in front of you. When we do this, he is here. I invite you to keep your eyes closed, and as I read these names, wave your hand and see if you can imagine the lives of those who have gone before us. Karen's mom, Joan, you just saw her picture. Molly's grandmother, Willie Mae. Our beautiful sister, Remy Fells. 1.19 million people on this earth that have died from the coronavirus. 12 siblings in Philadelphia this week alone who were shot and killed by gun violence. When we do this, they are here in this cloud, this great cloud of witnesses, as the Hebrews text puts it. We are surrounded by such a great cloud of witnesses. And now I invite you to think of someone that you have loved who has died, someone who means something to you, someone you feel close to, or someone you don't know but would like to feel close to. If you have paper and something to write with, I invite you to draw a big cloud. You don't have to be fancy. You don't have to be worried about what it looks like. Just draw a big cloud. And I invite you to write a name or names of someone who has died that feels important to you, whether you're related to them biologically or even knew them personally. So this is my cloud, just a very rough cloud. And in my cloud this morning, I wrote the names of some of the people who have been part of my life and some of the people who I don't know and never knew and would never have known me even if we lived at the same time, but who I feel close to and would like to be close to in this time. So I invite you to take a minute, draw a cloud, think about a name or the names of someone who's died that's important to you. And as you do that, or if you are not writing things down on a piece of paper, I invite you to put those names in the chat box. I invite you to, in the chat box, list the name or names of people who are important to you who have died, ancestors that you would like to claim for yourself. And I'll give you just a little bit of time to think about that. Write it on your paper, in your cloud, and also put it in the chat. As you continue to write or draw, I'm going to speak these names aloud, and I invite you to hold them in your own spirit, in your own space. And if you're so moved, wave your hand in front and see if you can feel their presence and honor their lives. Elandria Williams, Molly Ion, Jean Kaiser, Elandria Williams, Sylvia Rivera, Ken Roberts, Philip Mesner, Anita Petrucci, Don Anderson, Vivian Collingsworth Wiesner, Al Quinones, Myra Ramos, Jenny Ramos, Russell Fries, Juniper's grandmom, Regina, Linda Jackson, Matilda Corbin, Sophia's grandmother, Helen Iverson, Bill Stroud, Cecilia Allman, Miguel Allman, Jenny Ramos, Vicky Ramos, Carmen Ana Ramos, Irma Ramos, Blake Brockington, John Prine, Ethel and Howard Scott, Charles and Rose Miller, Rachel Trandall, Allison, Beth, Julie, McCoy Tyner, Baby Spirit and Baby Jamie, Gloria Gibson Hamilton, Marjorie Benson Gibson, Irma Benson, John Hamilton, Klaus Brown, Baby Ruth, Maxwell and J.W. Bigham, Laverne Tremblay, Josh Lieberman, Antonietta Gutierrez, Celita Becile, Mary and Jim Anderson, Nellie Anderson, Manuel Gutierrez, Cecilia Gutierrez, Phil Townsend, Murray Miller, my mom and dad, Bob and Helen, Luis A. Dupre III, Allison Mincer, Marjorie and Alfred O'Neill, Gloria Cesares, Jackie Adams, Monica, Charlene, Carol Rainville, Bert and Anna Rickenbach, Loretta Aileen Carlson Warren, Sarah Sharp, Robert Sharp, Joseph Sanchez, RBG, Aidan Seddon, Joyce Cheeseman, Judy Van Dyne, Ruth Ricker, George Floyd, Trayvon Martin, Breonna Taylor, Ahmed Arbery, Nelson Mandela, Dorothy Height, Tony McDade, and Mia Green. I invite you to keep this cloud with you this week. Take this on this paper you've written, or if you haven't written it now, do it when church is over. Add names to this cloud, names of your people. Think about people in your life and in the world that you would like to accompany you in these next remarkable days. Think about your own ancestors. Think about not just the big personalities in your family lineage, but think about the people that are often forgotten, the people who are different from you, whether they're in your family or even in someone else's. And consider adopting an ancestor, adding to your cloud a name that maybe struck you today in some way. Maybe it's Leslie's mom, Miss Gloria, or Ruth Bader Ginsburg, or Kathy's beautiful daughter, Allison, or little Walt. I invite you to keep this cloud of witnesses with you this week and add to them. Pray with them around you. Invite them to accompany you, to strengthen you, to give you courage. Therefore, Hebrews says, since we are surrounded by such a great cloud of witnesses, let us throw off everything that hinders and the sin that so easily entangles, and let us run with perseverance the race marked out for us. These are our ancestors, these saints, these names that we lifted up, the ones who have gone before us, the ones who gather around us in this cloud of witnesses above and around us, at our backs and having our backs, leading us on, bolstering us up, dreaming into our dreams and stirring up our prayers. They urge us, this is the way. It looks impossible, but just keep going. And so for many of us now, it does seem hard. It seems sometimes impossible, as if the road has ended and we can't see how we'll make it across. And we may feel so vulnerable, vulnerable in old, familiar ways, and vulnerable in ways we've never experienced. So afraid, frightened for the safety of those we love, and afraid for our own safety and security. So angry, and just so damn sad. We carry all this in our bodies, these bodies with their fleshy parts and bony parts, with their lumpy parts and broken parts, their stretch marks and wrinkles and scars, our hearts pumping, 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 our brains doing their weird and wild and amazing brainy things. I invite you, wherever you are, to take a deep breath. To breathe in what the trees breathe out. And breathe out what the trees breathe in. Breathe in knowing that we're breathing the same particles that Jesus breathed, that Gandhi breathed, that Fannie Lou Hamer breathed, that our ancestors breathed. And breathe out. That same breath will be breathed by the children of the children of the children who are yet to come. And feel your feet. Imagine they're sending down roots through the floor into the earth, connecting you with the life beneath. That's the heartbeat of our planet. And look at your hands. Wherever you are, look at your hands and notice what they're doing right now. Appreciate all that they hold and all they do. And right now I want to invite Nell Anderson, who has become part of our circle over the last few months, to share a reflection about her experience of loss and presence. And as she does, I invite you to pay particular attention to the notion of hands.
Oh. Hi, everybody. Along the lines of things we're learning, I've been taking a writing class, a memoir writing class, and I happened to share this with Linda last night. And I think she was already thinking about hands. So this seemed to connect. So my piece is called, How Do Our Loved Ones Continue to Be Present in Our Lives After Death? I never expected to be living alone in this house on West Penn Street in Philadelphia for the last 3 years. It's the beginning of the fall in 2020, and though the trees are hardly showing autumn color, the air has just started feeling cool at night. It was this time of year when Manuel and I purchased this house and moved in. The week before we were married in 1982. It is where our daughter was conceived and grew up, and where my stepsons came for every Thanksgiving, Easter, and summer vacations until they were in college. It is where our friends gathered for dinners, conversation, Halloween parties, and Noche Buena. It is also where Manuel died, and where I grieve, and where I'm learning to live without him. Tonight, during a pre-writing class meditation on place, I remember all of those moments in this house. And I notice that my hands are folded and that the top hand is comforting the one underneath. When Manuel died suddenly of a heart attack 3 years ago, and the medics had finished their efforts to bring him back, I sat with his body and held one of his hands in mine. Though I'm not religious and don't have any beliefs in a heaven that will reunite us, I have experienced the continued spiritual presence of my mother years after her death. In my last moments with Manuel's body, I hoped he would stay with me in some way as well. I spoke aloud to him. I said, Manuel, I hope you're going to be one of the dead people that stays in touch. I held his hand for a long time, perhaps hours, and even took a picture of our hands together, a picture that is still on my phone. In retrospect, I think he took this as his marching orders. However, I didn't realize how specific my request had been. After his body was taken away, after he was cremated, and his ashes spread by the red covered bridge in the Wissahickon, I kept looking for him in my dreams, in the house, somehow looking for a conversation. But he wasn't in my dreams, nor in his favorite chair, nor was he in the kitchen with me, cooking black beans Cuban style, nor emptying the dishwasher in the morning, a task that for some reason he owned. I was so jealous of my widow friends that told me how they had long conversations with their dead partners. It took me a long time for me to realize that my partner shows up by holding my hand. Whereas my mother shows up unexpectedly outdoors when I'm in a place of great beauty. Manuel returns to me during the times when my heart and mind are still, as in our writing class meditation. The first time I realized this was on a day my granddaughter Jane was at the house. She was playing with the dollhouse and singing. I was at the dining room table just enjoying her activity and relaxing rather than trying to get work done or clean up the room. And then out of the blue, I realized he was holding my hand. It felt the way a weighted blanket on a person's body, grounded, comforting, settling, and safe. Aha, Manuel always yearned for me to stop running around so much and just be still. Funny how he's still coaxing me along with this. I love that about him.
Nell, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Thank you so much. Thanks for sharing despite the vulnerability and maybe even a little bit of trepidation. And I hope you can feel us all holding you with gratitude, and you might even see some appreciation in the chat box. Did you notice what was happening with Nell in her hands in that sharing? How the way her hands were folded one on top of the other as a gesture of one hand comforting the other. I invite you to notice what it would be like to have that experience with your own hands and which way it feels comfortable, which hand is the comforter and which is the receiver, and how a simple gesture like that can help us ground and settle and connect and be comforted. In these next days, I invite us to think not just about that cloud, but also the ground, the cloud and the ground. So in addition to holding on to those ancestors that we are inviting to accompany us in these days ahead, I invite you also to think about what thing or things you can do that are simple, that are gestures, that are words, a photograph, humming a song, repeating an affirmation, drawing a picture, putting your feet on the ground, or resting one hand on top of the other, that will ground you during this time, that will help you feel connected to yourself, to others, to the earth, and to God. I invite you as we move into this week to hold the cloud and the ground. So my picture this morning just looks like this: a cloud with names and the ground, things that make me help me feel grounded, folding my hands, messaging my friend, taking deep breaths. Rabbi Arthur Waskow talks about the connection between breath and God. He reminds us that in the ancient biblical texts, the name for Holy One for God never had vowels. So it was not really the name Yahweh or Jehovah. The vowels were added later. So if one were to try to pronounce these ancient names for God, what would come out simply is breath. The name in the ancient texts for God is Yah or its brilliance, Rabbi Arthur writes, its brilliance as a name of God that it alone, breathing alone, is spoken in every human tongue. All the myriad names of God have breath as their root and nurture. And not only human languages, but also every grass and tree and frog and leopard. The interbreathing of oxygen and CO2 between animals and vegetation is what keeps Earth alive. God is breath. The breath of our ancestors, the breath of the Amazon rainforest, the very lungs of our planet, the breath of my red, shaggy Irish doodle Maggie, the breath of little Walt's mama, the breath that Marissa took before the judge declared what God and we already knew, that she is truly Nevaeh's and Adrian's and Elena's and Josiah's mama. The breath we take or took before we fill out or filled out our ballots, press that button, and ready ourselves for what's next. The cloud and the ground. Paul Tillich, a great 20th century theologian, called God the ground of our being. So this week, if you need to lament, lament. If you need to wail, wail. If you need to weep, weep. If you need to laugh, laugh, a good deep belly laugh. If you need to walk, walk. If you need to rage, rage. If you need to rock, then just rock and rock. If you need to dance, then by golly, turn up that music and dance it out. If you haven't voted, then by God, vote. All these are ways to pray. All these are held by God, the cloud of witnesses, the ground of our being, the breath of our future. Don't give up. You have a whole cloud of witnesses swirling around you, ready to be called into service, ready to accompany you, ready to help you run the race with perseverance and not grow weary and lose heart. Carry your cloud with you and remember the ground. Pick something and do it each day when the temperature rises or fear sets in or you find yourself feeling disconnected from yourself or others, the earth or God. The Reverend William Barber has said, hope goes through despair, not around it. I guess he's been on that same road to Gazankulu that I have. When you come to the end of the road and face that dry, seemingly impassable rocky riverbed, remember what Patrick said. This is the way. It looks impossible, but just keep going. This is God's good news. Amen.
And this is the time when we share this stuff. And we will now continue our worship through the presentation of our gifts and our offerings. We will have up momentarily just a reminder of how you can offer your gifts either online or through text or through mailing them in, and that will get put in the chat as well if anyone needs to use the link. For our spotlight on generosity, we like to highlight many of the ways that people are moving in this world in ways that bring justice and ways that give of themselves. And this morning, we spotlight our own associate pastor for community development, Margaret Ernst, who has been at the forefront of movement chaplaincy work here in Philly and coordinating far beyond Philly on behalf of Faith Matters Network and this congregation. So we are grateful for her vision, her courage, and her leadership in these painful and powerful. Thank you, Mark.
Wait, is it my turn, Kim?
I think we have a closing. We have a closing song. I think Linda was gonna.
Yeah, I think so this song I wrote actually about a day after the last presidential election. And the phrase has stayed with me ever since, that we are made for these times. Whether we feel like it or not, we really are made for these times. So I did a really simple recording of this at the request of our power contingent a while back, and we'll share it this morning. Invite you to sing along from wherever you are. The words are pretty simple. We were made for these times, and like gold, we'll keep on shining. We were made for these times.
We were made for these times. We were made for these times. And like gold we'll keep on shining. We were made for these times. We will sing in these times. We will sing in these times. And like gold we'll keep on shining. We will sing in these times. We will work in these times. We will work in these times. And like gold we'll keep on shining. We will work in these times. We will rise in these times. We will rise in these times. And like gold we'll keep on shining. We will rise in these times. We were made for these times. We were made for these times. And like gold we'll keep on shining. We were made for these times. We were made for these times. Stay well, stay strong, stay rooted and connected. Amen.
Right. Hi, everybody. This is Margaret. I'm going to just, before we do our closing benediction, I'm going to lift just a moment of pause with silence to hold in silence every name raised today, every story, and every name you did not raise. So let's wait in silence and then we'll continue. I started dancing and writing a lot more after my trans parent, Carla, died last year. She played multiple instruments, the saxophone, the clarinet, and more, and I feel her spirit with me every day. The loss and trauma of everyone we have lost is too much that we can't let it stay in our body, because otherwise it will eat us from within. Death is natural, but it's not supposed to be this way, that so many of us are dying and yet things do not change. So that is why we say their names. That is why we honor the saints. And that is why we dance it out. So we are going to do as our benediction today, a dancing benediction. And I don't mean by a dancing benediction, a bop with your head a little bit benediction, unless that's the only the only movement that's going to work for you. I do not mean like a sort of lightly tapping on your computer dancing benediction. Hard times require furious dancing so that we don't, not so that we forget our losses, but that so we can fight for a world where we can all live with dignity, so that we can move the trauma and the loss through our body, so we can get to tomorrow and keep on fighting for a world where we all can be here. So I invite you to stand if you are able, if that's a movement your body can do. And see my gallery view. And if you can only at this time, if it feels better to just be sitting, that's totally okay. But please rise, whether you are sitting or standing. Rise in your spirit. Rise. Are we risen? Are we risen? Are we risen? All right, I see Kathy Jacobson's risen. I see Ovid is risen. The Alaman family. Okay, I see some people risen. I see some people's virtual profile pictures too. I can't tell if you're risen. Ruth, are you risen? All right. I'm gonna invite you. So we have, okay, great. So, oh yeah, and just stretch a little bit because I was furiously dancing in a park a week ago and I didn't stretch and then I pulled a muscle. So we just don't, we don't wanna dance, we don't wanna actually tear it up, right? We've been at Zoom screens. Okay. So we're gonna start the song. And as our benediction today, we're gonna have just a little bit of a different version of the song we heard earlier, and then one more. Then you're invited to stay as long as you want to dance and to bring these songs into the rest of your week and into next week, no matter what happens in this week.
And a reminder, Margaret, that you're invited to stay after and chat and check in with us, and we'll hold a little bit of space after all the music's over for anyone who would like to connect.
Yes, amen to that. Okay, I'm gonna start. And then you follow my lead.
Woo!